Hello, me lovelies. Right, today, day 11. Done this for 11 days straight now. Pretty bonkers, really. Weight's done, boxing this evening. This is where my mind's been today. Something I've been pondering on. Would have made a longer video, but I want your thoughts and comments in this. Let's get a bit of input on this because sick of you getting just my ideas. I'm interested in knowing yours. Here's my thoughts on, we all know that mental and physical fitness aren't in isolated things. They are conjoined. You have mental fitness, you have physical fitness, and they are intertwined. This is what I've been thinking about though. Does one come before the other, or does one have a hierarchy over the other? Does mental fitness trump physical fitness, or vice versa? Here's what I mean by that. Now, when I worked at the triathlon shop, there were several people that used to come in the shop that were insanely fit, like proper, incredible fit. They'd be doing upwards of kind of pro level hours, 30 plus hours of training every week. And as you got to know them, you started to kind of realise that it was an obsession, that they were actually a little bit unhinged. There were a lot of kind of disorders in there that in another life could have been alcohol addiction or any other kind of like addiction. They were addicted to kind of sport. However, they presented as being kind of physically fit. And actually, I think in the broader world, when people see somebody that's that kind of lean and toned, they kind of just assume they've got their act together. And in my own physical kind of journey, the most fittest I've ever been in terms of physical fitness and cardio and all the rest of it was 2015. I ran my fastest ever 5K as part of an 8K race. The first 5K of an 8K race I ran just over 19 minutes. It's the fastest I've ever run 5K. I got my 10K PB that year. I came 14th at the Bristol Triathlon overall. I came third, I think, in my age group or something. I was like absolutely the leanest I've been. I think I was 78 kilos and running, whatever that is, sub 20s and around 40 minutes per 10K. Fastest I've ever been. My mental health was in the bin, like literally in the dustbin. I was all over the shop, on the verge of a total mess, really. And really, everything that I've been doing since then has been rebuilding since that point. It absolutely came crashing down around my ears. However, I heard this a lot. I heard a lot of people saying to me, "You look great. You look really, really well. You look you look like you've got things together and everything else." And actually, oddly enough, I wasn't drinking then either. And people had this perception that I was super fit. My mental health was in the bin. My physical health was through the roof. But there was an element of me punishing myself on training runs and literally like intervals. I would be, well, let's put it this way. They wouldn't end very pleasantly for me. I would push myself to the absolute limit. So that's my question. My question is this really. We see people with physical health. They eat well, they train well, but their mental health isn't in great shape whatsoever. However, I think it's relatively rare that the inverse of that is true. Somebody whose mental health is in pretty good shape and they kind of know where they're at, they're pretty comfortable with everything. Maslow's hierarchy, like we were talking about yesterday, they pretty much got all that in place, even up to the self-actualization thing. They're creative, they have the freedom, they feel respected, they have good self-esteem. I think it's relatively rare that somebody with that mental health state doesn't have the wherewithal to understand that it's also important to look after their physical health. So that's what's in my mind today. That's what I've been thinking about. So somebody that's mentally stable and in pretty good shape, let's say like general physical preparedness. Let's talk about general mental preparedness. Maybe that's a thing we could talk about another time. That Maslow really are the basic pillars of general mental preparedness. They have mental resilience, they have mental endurance, they have mental agility, all those things that we also want physically. I would wager that somebody that has all that in place has all of the mental capacity to know how important it is to have their physical health up together. But I would argue that the inverse isn't true. What do you genuinely think about that? Or do you even have any experience of that? Or do you know anyone that's kind of got one in place and not the other? That's kind of my thought process at the minute. Anyway, that is it. Off to have a shower, post shoulders. Why do I do a shoulder day on the same day that I do a boxing day? But hey, you know what? I'm not ever going to end up in the ring boxing anymore. That was for a lifetime ago that I did that. So it's all about just getting fit, isn't it? Anyway, that's it. Day 11 in the bag, other than boxing. And I haven't been called by Sting yet. So the chances are tomorrow might be a relatively easy day. And I'm working from home and I can just take it steady. Anyway, I will see you lot tomorrow. Let me know in the comments what you think about what's going through my head today. And then maybe from the comments, we can have another discussion on this down the line a little bit. Nice. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.